leave, but I kind of had a desire. I wanted to try to do something differently. And I started getting postcards in the mail advertising chaplains for the Army.
Ah.
So,
well, you picked the right one.
right, yeah. So for 2 or 3 days, I just would, it was in my mail, so I would just toss it in the trash, you know.
Sure.
Until one day I saw, looking down in my trash, I saw one of the advertisements for the Army was, we need pastoral care experts. And so that's really where my heart was counseling and providing support to people and providing that kind of ministry. And so
so that sounded like a real good fit.
right.
Okay.
I went down to the recruiter, the Army recruiter, and they kind of attacked me practically when I walked in the
Please.
door.
Oh, good. Come on. And my husband did some recruiting, and he recruited chaplains some too. And you did get attacked because there aren't that many.
Right.
That were willing to take the
right.
time and the experience.
Right. And I think we were kind of at a time where they were really needing chaplains, not only in the Navy where I ended up, but in the Army. Mm-hmm. So I felt, well, if the Army would accept me, my dad had been in the Navy for 5 or 6 years.
So you had a history.
I had a history. And I heard all these glowing stories about all the ports he had visited, all the wonderful things he had done in the Navy. He never had anything negative to say. So I thought, well, if the Army will take me, then I'll try. I mean, if the Army will take me, then I'll try the Navy.
Oh, I'm so glad you did.
And yeah, I was recruited by the Navy as a Navy
That's
chaplain.
great.
So it was that kind of started my whole progression in being a Navy chaplain. I think I'm going on my 8th year now. My first duty station was in San Diego.
Did you do your training there, or where do you do your chaplain training?
We do our chaplain training. They've changed now, but you go to Officer Development School in Newport, Rhode Island, and I happened to be there in January, so it was,
ooh, cold.
I think, I don't know, maybe they always have sleet and rain and cold and snow and such like that in Newport, Rhode Island, but it was cold. We had 5 weeks of officer training to teach us how to be a naval officer. And then we crossed the bridge in Newport, Rhode Island. We had the chaplain school that was there, and that's where we went to chaplain school.
Okay.
Probably about 8 weeks that we were there in chaplain school. And now with BRAC, they've kind of combined all the military chaplains in one location at Fort Jackson. So now they do the Air Force, South Carolina.
Oh,
so
wow.
they do the Air Force and the Army and the Navy chaplains are all in the same location.
And then the Navy serves the Marines.
The Navy serves the Marines and the Coast Guard.
Okay.
So we have opportunities to serve a variety of different forces. Right.
That's great.
Right.
All right.
So I graduated from chaplain school, and then my first duty station again was in San Diego, and at one time I had 11 ships that I was chaplain for, kind of covering each ship. I deployed 3 times.
I was going to say you were going to sea with them?
Yes.
Wow. We did back-to-back sea tours when we were in San Diego.
Oh.
That takes a while.
Yeah, it does. It does. My first ship was an LPD, which is transporting Marines, and we did a hull swap.
Landing platform dock. We were on Cleveland number 7. Which was
oh,
yours?
Yeah. My first ship was the Denver.
Oh, okay.
And my second, which was number 10.
Yeah,
my
a lot of
second
people don't
ship
even know
was,
what LPD is.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
My second ship was the Juno, and
okay.
That's where we did the hull swap. We took the Denver over, and then we to Japan, and we hull swapped with the Juno, and then the Juno was decommissioned. It was its last. That was its last tour. We took it up to Alaska, its home namesake.
Is it up there now still?
No, it's in the registry for decommissioned ships now. So it's probably in a dock area somewhere.
New Jersey or something was in Bremerton when we were up there, just in the yards, waiting to be whatever they were going to do.
Yeah,
some
they.
So anyway, did you enjoy the sea tours?
I did. My I guess probably many sailors would say that your first ship is maybe your favorite ship, and it was for me.
Yeah.
My XO was from Oklahoma, so
man,
we hit it off right off. We hit it right off.
That's
so,
great.
It was a really great experience.
Okay.
My very first deployment, my very first ship.
And your family stayed in San Diego, of course.
Right.
When you were there.
That was kind of an interesting story because our ship, we deployed, so you say goodbye to your family on shore, but you've experienced that before, and you have all the tears and all that kind of thing. And my ship hadn't been out to sea but maybe 12 hours. We had some kind of engine issue.
Gosh.
We had to turn back around.
You got to be careful. That causes problems with some of the guys.
Right.
They've already, wives have moved and changed.
Right.
We're going to be going to a break in just a bit, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit about the history of the chapel and how you got out here with us. And so we'll go to break, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And you're back. We're back with Chaplain Horn and Lois, and we were just about to get him through with his sea duty, and now I want to talk to him a little bit about the chapel and how he got here, and some of the history of the chapel that some of you guys out there may not know.
Yeah, whenever I came to
the desert with
from
the
the
Navy.
desert from San Diego, right? That was quite a change.
Culture shock.
Right. My father-in-law even said when we were coming to China Lake, because I loved to fish, and he said, "Oh, Derek, you're going to love it because there's a lake. There must be a lake there, China Lake." Well, maybe when the dinosaurs walked the earth, there was water in the lake. But
I think maybe.
Right.
I'm not sure. There's some fossils out there.
Yeah.
Right.
So coming to China Lake, that was my next duty station here, and I've been here 3.5 years.
Okay.
And I just love the chapel community here.
We have a great group of people up
Yes.
there. We really do. And both, you are responsible for the command, so you're responsible for what, 4 religions?
Right. We have 4 faith traditions that are represented through the chapel. You have the Catholic community, which is the largest of our community, and we have the Jewish community. We have an Islamic community, and we also have the Protestant community, which is kind of multiple faith traditions that fall within the Protestant
and you are responsible to be sure that those get handled, or that the service members get those done for them. Wow.
And we can have, with all our services, our outreach programs and such like that, we could have nearly 1,000 people through the chapel every week. Through all the events that we have going on. And that history goes back. We were kind of talking about the history. The chapel, or the religious faith community, really began in the very beginning when the base was first,
it was in 1943 or something.
You're right.
Like that,
you're
wasn't
right.
it?
1943.
Yeah. Then it was still NAWS, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And so the very first Navy chaplain was Chaplain Reeves. He was a lieutenant. He had been in the Solomon Island campaign, so some of the most fierce fighting during World War II. And primarily, he was in the Bougainville campaign. He was attached to 3rd Marine, which did invasion into Bougainville. The island there was quite a Japanese fortification during World War II. So during that battle, or the taking of that island, I think around 700 to 800 American soldiers lost their lives in that campaign.
And he was there with ministering to them.
He was there with them.
And then he came to the desert.
Right. And he writes about the best chapel, and some of the readings that I've seen of his. He writes about his favorite chapel was in Bougainville. He says that they cut a place out in the middle of the jungle, and the ceiling of the chapel was the canopy of the jungle overhead, and the walls of the chapel were lined with orchids. Apparently there was orchids growing on the island.
Gosh.
And he talks about the altar, or his pulpit, being a stump, and the seating to be the muddy floor of the jungle. And he talks about how that was just a powerful experience for him, this chapel in the midst of the jungle, and conducting services there.
And ministering to those people that are having to give their lives on a daily basis must have been traumatic.
Right.
Or dramatic, anyway.
So he came from that experience
to a Quonset hut here.
To a Quonset hut. So the first chapel facility was a Quonset hut. They eventually kind of converted it into its own building with a face on the front, a picket fence around it,
Oh, wow.
some plants. But the pictures I've seen looks like it's just barren. During that time, China Lake being barren. Their Protestant Catholic congregation, the Public Works guys had put a crucifix and then a Protestant cross.
When
so
they could swap
push a
back and
button.
forth.
They could push a button and it could switch.
Oh, that's
it's amazing.
hilarious.
Isn't that amazing?
That's kind of cool.
And in
I
those
love it.
early days, they were running just in the Protestant congregation around 230 in 1945. So
On a weekly basis.
on a weekly basis.
Wow.
So it's
That's
fitting all
great.
those people
in that little
Quonset hut. Right.
And then I don't know when the building was built that we're in now, but
Around the mid 1950s, I
was
think
it?
1957 was, or 1956 was the main chapel building that we're in now, the A-framed building. The east wing was built in 1959 time frame, and it also served as the for the Jewish congregation.
It still does somewhat,
It does.
doesn't it?
It
Yeah,
does. Our Jewish
okay.
congregation still meets in the east wing. The front part of the east wing is there. It has a stage area. Their tabernacle is there, as well as they have a Holocaust Torah that's on loan to them that they use each week for their services.
Were
their
there
Jewish
offices
services.
in that building too, or did they build the offices
They built the offices later.
later?
And then the small chapel, the Blessed Sacrament Chapel that we use for daily Mass, was built a little bit later
Later
as well.
too.
Right.
Okay.
But you think about the community of faith that's been represented there, with the Protestant chaplain coming in 44 and then Protestant services continuing from then on. The Catholic chaplain, I think the first was Father Clark was the first military chaplain. Father Boucher was serving from Trona and St. Madeleine.
Because at that time, Trona was the big city.
Right.
So you'd go over there to shop instead of them coming here like they do now. That just amazes me when I think about that.
The Jewish congregation with Rabbi Getz was, I think, the first rabbi that was here in the mid 40s to late 40s. Our Islamic congregation wasn't started till the 1990s, but that faith community has been there for all of those
these
years, from the
years.
very start of China Lake.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I always tell people that I think of the chapel and all those people that have passed through those doors throughout the years, Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Islamic, all of those who have contributed to make the chapel what it is today, as kind of the grain and fine wood. And each one of those people throughout its history have made that wood just luster.
All of the
throughout area.
personalities and all of the service members that have come through there. It's
Right.
just amazing.
It's amazing.
And they all have such, at least the ones I've talked to, have such good memories
They
of
do.
that
They
particular
do.
chapel and the faith groups that are there.
Right, because many
So-
of them lived on the base. At
most of
one
them
time,
did,
most of the
yeah.
civilians and the military lived,
Exactly.
house to house,
Right.
on the base. So it's great. It's a tremendous history that's there in that chapel,
And
and
we
it
are
continues
all
today.
privy to have that. That's pretty exciting for
Yes.
us. So
Yes.
we're going to go to a break again, and then we're going to come back and talk about a little bit of the program, some of the outreach that CHAPS is doing, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes. Okay, we're back, and we're back with Lieutenant Horn, who's command chaplain on NAWS. And he's going to tell us a little bit about some of the awards and programs that are going on at the chapel out there. So can you help me with that a little bit? Tell me.
Yeah, just recently we won the Navy Region Southwest, so that's our region that our base is located in. We won the Project Good Neighbor Award, which is an award recognizing community service of those
great.
on the base, military and civilians alike, that do community service in the community as a whole, and outlying towns and such.
Oh, they give it to the towns too, and not just on base then.
Right. So
Okay.
our community service, extends beyond just, Ridgecrest. We've also done some things out into the community, or outlying communities as well. And then we won the honorable mention for the Navy-wide for our size of base.
Oh, that's wonderful.
The Navy-wide project Good Neighbor Award.
Why don't we have
So-
a big party? No.
Yeah, we should.
We
we
should
should have a big party. So,
Celebrate.
Right. So that award is really honors our sailors and Marines and their families who contribute continually to
All the
our
time.
community.
Yeah.
And the Ridgecrest community through community service. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just, the planned community events that I put on through the chapel. It could be people that volunteer through coaching kids in sports, which
Okay.
we have numerous of our military that do that, or providing support at the schools, or elementary schools or
Tots?
juniors. The Toys for Tot program,
Right.
our food drives that we do. All of those things kind of come together to
And that's
symbolize.
some of the things that were graded to get the award?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
So we collected all of those data points and then sent them up, and then because of our, we were recognized because of the community outreach that we do here at China Lake, our military men and women and their families.
That's awesome.
So it's really an honor, and I've always had a heart for community service. I always believe that the smallest act of kindness can make, I really believe, an
make a
eternal
difference.
difference.
Absolutely.
And so we do, throughout, I think, the Navy's history, they've always been involved in some kind of either humanitarian or community service. It's been a big emphasis. And I think in 2009, we had a
Excuse me.
Global Force for Good campaign that was going on. And
We took part in that. I mean, you guys took
Right.
part in that.
So that encompassed, the Navy's humanitarian missions that they do abroad, as well as just the local community outreach that we do with the military.
I'm very impressed with what the base and the community do together here in Ridgecrest.
Right.
We meld very well.
Right. It's kind
It's
of like,
really
it's
nice.
interesting. A lot of people, I know that many people describe the base as unique. And I've heard many people say that,
Right.
you could, if you got a nickel for every time that was said, you'd have a lot of money.
Be a rich person.
You'd be a
yeah,
rich
right.
person.
It's very different base than anyone
It is.
I've ever been on.
It
but
is.
It's
But
neat
that-
in its own way. It's
Right.
an awesome base.
So you
like
have,
that.
a lot of people in the community that work on the base, and the patriotic spirit of Ridgecrest is just,
It's
it's just
wonderful.
amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's not found in other communities around the United States, but it is.
It stands out
it
here,
stands out
I
here.
think.
It stands
Others
out here.
maybe it doesn't stand out as much, or maybe they're bigger and it doesn't get as
Right.
much emphasis as it
Right.
would other places. But then what is your personal favorite or your personal little jobs that you like to do?
Well, just recently we worked with the Salvation Army, which is they do incredible support in the
They do.
community. And our sailors, Marines, and their families, I think we had around 75 volunteers that were at Salvation Army, and we put together Thanksgiving baskets that they give to the needy. Somewhere around, within I think an hour and 10 minutes, the sailors and Marines and their families had assembled 400 Thanksgiving baskets. I
Well,
mean,
if you
just
get that
very
many
quick.
people,
Right.
that's-
They had just to create a conveyor line kind of, and they
oh,
put
that's
them together.
wonderful. Now, are they delivering them also, or?
No, the Salvation Army's in charge of that part.
Okay.
But this has been an ongoing project. I think we've done it at least three years in a row that we do that kind of outreach. And
Probably
make
as
that
long
kind
as you've been here.
It has
Yeah,
been. It has
right.
been.
Yeah.
We've also done, helped out at the animal shelter, doing cleaning and organizing. We've done some things with the women's shelter here in town,
It's a
with
good
decorating
project.
during Christmas time, some of their houses and such. When the Boys and Girls Club was real active, we did some Boys and Girls Club outreach. One particular time I remember we did a community service project there. We did a sports day for all the kids at the Boys and Girls Club. It was during the summertime. The sailors came, and I had basketballs and soccer balls, and we played relay games.
You
and
went
such.
to them.
We went
Yeah.
to them,
All right.
And one of the boys there had some challenges going on in his life. And he expressed to me after we were getting ready to leave, he said, "Can you bring them back every day to
every
play
day?
with me?" And so that just
Okay.
shows you the impact that the sailors and Marines and their families
That's
have
wonderful.
upon
You just
upon
wanted to
people.
just every day.
He wanted us. He wanted me to. I said, "Well, I can't bring them back every day, but I will
We'll
bring them
come
back.
back.
I will
That's
bring them back."
great.
So
Oh,
that
wow.
community, you know, not only are the sailors and Marines impacting the community, but when you're serving someone else and you're doing a benefit to someone else, you know, your problems and difficulties and challenges don't seem
They
as
get a
great.
little
They
smaller,
get a little
don't
bit
they?
smaller.
You just feel like,
And
yeah.
it also makes you feel proud, and it makes you feel good when you can do something for someone else.
Exactly.
Whatever that is, you know, whether it's
Right.
you're on your way to work and someone's got a flat tire and you stop and change their tire. Again, that
I have
smallest.
to remember your name. No, next
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I'm not on the way to work, but
Right.
we're getting close to the end. Do we want to talk about when services are on base? Or?
Right. We have, like I said, we have our Catholic services, which are on Saturdays. We have 1600 Mass Sunday mornings. They have a 9 o'clock, and then at Sunday nights they have a 7 o'clock Mass. Then he has Father Doubts has daily Mass Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for those who have base access. I conduct the Protestant services at 10:30 on Sunday mornings. We have our Jewish congregation that meets on Fridays and Saturdays. Saturday mornings when we have the rabbi here, we have a student
visiting
rabbi.
rabbi. Student rabbi.
A student
Oh,
rabbi.
that's great.
Our Islamic services are on Fridays at 1300. Dr. Khatib leads those.
And you're telling me the numbers were just huge, like 1,000 people might come through.
Right.
Okay, so we are at the end. This has been wonderful.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
for
you so
coming.
much, Lois, for
And
having
if you
me
guys
here.
have any questions, you can call the base and find out more about the chapel that's out there. And thank you so much for coming.
Oh, Lois, thank you for having me.
And I'll see you guys next week.